Hi, ladies.
We're back.
We're back. Hopefully you can find us here. The recording should look a lot better than this, so hopefully you can hop over there or join us back here. So what we were just sharing about is really the four levels and stages of spirituality, and then this kind of pendulum swing that we tend to do when we're breaking free of this, which is either to maybe be in compliance, and it's like that's the part of us that goes and gets all straight A's, and we do what mom and dad really wanted us to do, which is like to go become a doctor and go to medical school, or we become the rebel and we're like not the black sheep of the family, but usually women in this community, we're the white sheep of the family. We're the ones that maybe have more of that spiritual inclination and that spiritual leaning.
And considered a little bit different, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's fine to a degree, but if we swing all the way to the other end of the spectrum and we're really just the rebel and just in that defiance for the sake of defiance, that can also be destructive to who we really are. It's really about healing these different parts of ourselves and getting into alliance with who we truly are.
And also, Kate, we were talking earlier about when we hold on to that rebel part of us as a child might in rebellion, then it can show up, if we haven't healed that part of ourselves as a woman, it can show up in our lives that we are this rebel, and we hold on this rebel stance, and it can actually inhibit our results in our business.
I mean, all of this can, whether we are, in that more like codependent state of I'm really worried about what people think, or we swing to the other side and it's like I don't give a damn what people think. Being in any kind, both of those are ultimately a reflection of an unhealed state. And when we're not healed, when we're not really in alliance with ourselves fully, that's when we repel clients, we repel money. And again, it's like none of this really makes a lot of logical sense, but it's really about the belief systems.
And of course, none of it is conscious.
None of it's conscious. And that's what can be so challenging about all of this.
Because why is it, what's going on here, and so that's why we really start with the inner stuff.
Yeah.
To look at, so where did all this begin? And, when I look back at my life, it's interesting about what I learned about being visible.
Yeah, so share that. That's really important.
So when I was 4 years old, I had a baby brother that who died. And I remember, what I do remember about being a 4-year-old, and I really love my little baby brother, and like any 4-year-old would. And, one day he was here, and the next day he wasn't. And there's a lot to understand that children cannot grasp that. And that was my first experience with death.
And it wasn't really talked about in your family either.
It caused so much pain for my mother that she didn't really talk about it. And so, and every time that it was talked about, we noticed that, there was just so much emotion around it. So, I don't remember a whole lot. Later in life, we always talked about, I had 2 brothers actually who had died, but
one was before you came along.
One was before I came along, and the second one, David, was right after me. So we did talk about the boys, and so it got to be a little bit more of a conversation. We did talk about, but so we're talking about a little 4-year-old who was reacting to the death of her baby brother, who was sharing the same room.
You were playing under his crib.
I was playing under his crib, and and I was unbuttoning his snappies, playing with him. And so what ended up happening was that I became very fearful that my mother was going to disappear too, just poof. And so what ended up happening is I remember being put on a school bus at 5 and going to kindergarten and just screaming. I can still remember having those doors closed, and my mother putting me on the school bus, the doors closed, and I'm just hysterical. And so, soon after that, and I don't know the timetable, but soon after that, I developed a stuttering habit issue. And it was really, my parents, took me to see a doctor about it and all of that. But what ended up happening is as I grew older,
Well, the doctor shared that it was really from the trauma
it was,
of
yes,
losing your little brother.
yes, exactly. And, for them to take as, pay as much attention to me as they possibly
Yeah.
could and all of that. But what ended up happening is the stuttering just didn't go away.
Right.
And so here I'm entering first grade, and I'm very conscious of it. A little 6-year-old is very conscious of not being able to get her words out. It's terrible. And so, and I remember the terror. Oh my God! This was like, just put me to death first, please. Those damn reading groups that we had. I think they're horrible for most kids, but for someone who stuttered, I can remember, reading these the first readers that you learn to read, Dick, Jane, and Sally. Dick ran and saw a spot, and then Sally. All these, and the people, all the other kids, it would be coming closer and closer and closer to me.
Like panic attack.
Panic attack, heart pumping, oh my God, because I was so embarrassed.
Yeah.
And it was really, really hard. And all the eyes, let me tell you, when you're a stutterer and you're trying to get your words out, all the eyes are on me. I'm actually reliving that in this moment. I really am.
It's amazing, these things, they go really deep.
Oh, they do. I'm just feeling that, remembering what that was like. All those eyes on me, just waiting for me to make a mistake. And so I took on this belief that, it really isn't very safe to
speak up,
to stand out,
to be visible.
to be visible.
Yep.
And so that carried throughout my whole life.
Yeah.
And that was really, that was not really conducive. Gosh, I can remember even in Spanish class, learning another language. I remember I stuttered in Spanish.
Yeah.
And that was terrifying. So it's just, we learn these certain things that aren't safe.
Well, and so you eventually got over the stuttering.
Yes.
But then, like, public speaking in your adult life.
Fast forward to that to, I was starting a business in my mid-30s, and I remember I was going to have to introduce someone on stage. Let me just say maybe 3 or 4 sentences to introduce this person, and I was in holy terror to get up there, and again, having all those eyes on me. And that really encouraged me and propelled me to go and do Toastmasters so that I could be more comfortable. So these are the things that my guess is many of you have had, similar kinds of situations where that it just hasn't been safe.
Yeah. So, what we really encourage you to do is, we shared yesterday about getting an accountability buddy. So whether it's someone in this group, someone outside of it, it could also just be with your journal, but to really take some time with yourself to explore, where were you dismissed? Where were maybe you made fun of? Where were you ignored? Where were the places, where are some of these wounds that happened, or what were you really taught about visibility that might not even be still much in your conscious awareness, but that might still be the belief system that's running the show? Because once you get to that, and this is the really amazing thing, is that oftentimes we're like really judgmental of ourselves. We're really hard on ourselves, especially like really high achieving women. That it's like, but I should be able to do this. I should be able to do that. Why is this so
Absolutely.
hard? And what we can actually develop is, again, this isn't about blaming anyone. In fact, it's cultivating more compassion for others, more compassion for ourselves. And we can, when we really understand where these wounds came from, or where some of these blocks came from, then we can really evolve them. So that's really the homework today, is to go into your own story and to really look at, what was the message that you received about being visible?
Exactly.
About being heard, about really speaking out. One of the things that we hear so many women share is around shame. That there's a lot of feelings around shame that come up for them. And this is really interesting. Brene Brown, she talks about that guilt, the feeling of guilt, is that I have done something wrong, But shame is a very different feeling. It's that I am wrong. Shame really means that I am wrong. So it's a deeper beingness. It's not just about a behavior that I've done. It's about who I am fundamentally. And so if you have any of that going on, really looking at where did that come from. So we really encourage you to do that, to really, just by signing up for this challenge, you're already so brave. And this stuff is not necessarily easy to look at, but it is so freeing on the other side.
And this is really, the stand that we take, that once we can look at it in the light of day and be really honest with it, number one, do we first understand it? But then we have compassion for ourselves. And that is the place that where healing begins, is really when we can still love ourselves and understand, what is it that that really went on for us. And it's kind of like that, that little Judy in the reading group that just never felt like she could really speak up, or when she did, it just wasn't safe.
Yeah.
And so, actually,
I'll share a little bit more tomorrow
about yours,
about my story,
Yeah.
and because tomorrow we're going to be talking about visibility and the money story, and really the link between the two that we found, and with that, mine is definitely about visibility, but there's also a big piece around the money story. So I'll share a little bit about my story
there's a
tomorrow.
money component.
Yeah, component for
there.
sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and just to say, what I also did was I went on because I didn't feel, probably I felt a lot of shame, what you're talking about, Kate, that I wasn't.
You were wrong.
I was wrong, and I wasn't enough. I'm not good enough, and I'm not enough are actually different.
They are different.
They really are.
Yeah.
If I'm not enough, and I went on as an adult and got a handful of different certifications. I mean, I started off in my early 20s with a massage therapist, and then I went on to become a registered nurse, and then I went on to become a yoga, therapist. And what else did I become?
You went and got a master's in psychotherapy.
Well, I was in the process of,
Yeah.
exactly. And then I also did, I was
all the coaching certifications.
and I was a spiritual practitioner.
Yeah.
And then in the midst of all of that, I started a network marketing business in my early 30s.
That you had for like 25 years.
That I had for 25 years. And,
Yeah.
and so what is the, and then, and now coaching, which I love, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, knowing that all of that was necessary for me to get to where I am today.
But it's really
But-
about what's the underlying component
Yes.
underneath it.
Yes.
Because if you are not enough, then you're always going to look for more things outside of you in
Outside of
order
me.
to become enough.
Yes.
And so we see that for women as well, is this it's in the next, the validation is in the next certification or the next training or the next degree.
Then I'll be good enough.
Yeah.
And then I'll be good enough. So this is absolutely life-changing and freedom-enhancing.
Yep.
To be caught in the chokehold and the chains of the not good enough and the not enough and the shame is really paralyzing. And so this is what we're going to be looking at, is turning this puppy around.
Yeah. So take some time to explore, and we can post some questions down below one of these two videos. What were some of the messages that you received around your visibility and you really standing out, stepping up? Another one that we hear a lot is that a lot of women receive the message that, if you are really visible and if you're really confident, that's actually you being conceited and really full of yourself.
Yeah.
So just really looking at what are the messages that you received. I'd love to see them in the video. We'll also go through these tomorrow because these are so powerful. Once you really know what the story is, then you can reverse it. You can really repattern that story, but it has to be really specific. It's not just that it wasn't safe to be visible. Let's go even deeper here. Let's really get to the core of what the message was. So, is it that it wasn't approved of to stand out? You know, that question that a lot of people grew up with, they're like, oh my God, what are the neighbors gonna think? And I love Bob Proctor. He's like, who gives a shit what the neighbors think? Because you know what? They're living their life and they're, you know, probably like the status quo. And I mean, you know, Bob Proctor. You know, was it that every time that you stand up or speak out that you are disapproved of or shamed or put down? You know, is it shameful to bring attention to yourself or wrong to bring attention to yourself? You know, again, many of us got this message that we were somehow full of ourselves. If we even just acknowledged the great things about ourselves, that like we are really, you know, you're smart, you're intelligent, you're educated, you're pretty, all of those things. I mean, I remember my grandfather, you know, it was always, oh, she's so pretty. Oh, but pretty is what pretty does. It was like, you can't actually be all that pretty because it's pretty conceited. You got to be like smart too. And it's really about your personality, which is not necessarily a bad message to give a kid. I get that. But you know, it's
But
again,
it had some underlying, you know.
it was always like a little something there. So really explore that for yourself. And so you might want to hop on the phone with your accountability partner, someone else, you know, a girlfriend or a fellow colleague who's on this mission with you. If you need to find someone, you know,
Post it
down
here.
below.
Say, I'm looking for a buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do some journaling, because this is getting to the bottom of this is going to transform this so much.
Yeah.
So I know that we've had some connective issues today, kind of like yesterday, so we can't seem to read your comments.
I know it. I know
So
it.
if you do have any questions, we would love to hear them. We can also, you can post them. If you're watching the replay, you can post them later on as well, and we can respond to those, or we can get to them tomorrow.
We will absolutely respond to any
Yeah.
comments that come through. We
Yeah.
promise. We promise. And we appreciate you hanging in there with us with
Yeah.
all this crazy internet stuff
Yeah.
going on. I guess it's the state of the world.
So if you have any comments or questions, you can post them below. We'll stay on for just another couple of minutes here. And so tomorrow is going to be really fun. It's all about visibility and the money story. And then
yes.
we're going to go into, so like once we have this stuff kind of handled, once we are understanding what the belief systems are really revealing to us, that's when we can get into the action. That's when we can really take the aligned action. And one thing that I'm sure we'll share later on too, but probably the most shocking thing that we have discovered in our growth and in the growth of our business is that making money isn't hard. Building a business is not hard. That all of the components that go into building a business, and we'll go through those probably on day 4 of like, you know, this, oh, now we have a dog.
Oh no, we've got a dog.
Hi, Izzy. Dog bomb.
Dog bomb.
So all of the components of building a business step by step, they're not necessarily all that complicated.
Because it's just step by step. You know, it's kind of, it's somewhat, it's paint by numbers.
It's a bit scientific.
It's scientific.
But what's really hard is our own pushing against belief systems that have not been transformed is really, really challenging.
Because if the belief systems don't believe that you can, that you're enough, that
Izzy.
that it's the belief, you know, all of that stuff. So those stories, we're gonna like pull them out. We're gonna take a look at them, and then we're gonna say, okay, so it literally is in the actions that begin to repattern those stories. But we have to know what they are first. And so, as Kate was saying, really on day 4, we're going to start getting into some of the actions about what you can do. And we're going to have some fun things for you to participate in. So thanks for being here, kids. We appreciate it.
I know. So I'm just trying to see if there are any comments that I can see on, looks like, yeah, we were having some trouble. So anyway, please do comment below in the replay, and we'll be back with you again tomorrow, which is all about visibility and money.
Okay.
All right, ladies, lots of love.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.